All right, good evening, WNBA and women's basketball fans, and welcome into the WNBA 365 Network, your 24/7 365 comprehensive home for everything revolving around the WNBA and the rest of the women's basketball universe. Back with you folks here, coming away from Studio 171 in Los Angeles, California. Back here with another two-person show tonight. Joined tonight, of course, by Crystal Thomas up in LA, and of course, Con McClure joining you folks in studio from Studio 171 in San Diego, here on WNBA 365 Offseason Central. Crystal, good evening. Very, very dry night. Not a lot to talk about tonight on the program, but we'll find a way to pass the next 30 minutes by with some discussion about the league and other things included. Other than that, how's it been going, though?
It's going pretty well. Had a pretty busy day, but it's going well on my end. How about you?
Well, everything's been slow for me as well. Still kicking the sore throat a little bit, but everything else has been fine. Again, folks, there is not a whole lot to report on this evening in regards to any overseas coverage or any league-wide news. Now, we do have one league-wide story we'll get to, then we'll have some open-form conversation between us two for the next 29 minutes and change here, folks. And be sure to hop on social media if you want to. It's at WNBA365, at Calamac3, or at Pup1010 for some commentary during the course of tonight's program. Crystal, a story that broke today, but should have been really talked about last week probably, was a few more minor WNBA rule tweaks. The article posted on WNBA.com earlier today, noting that the WNBA Board of Governors have approved two rule changes for the upcoming 2016 season. The league announced today. The two changes go as follows. First and foremost, the 24-second shot clock will be reset to 14 seconds after an offensive rebound or when the offensive team otherwise retains possession after the ball contacts the rim. And second, the following rules below will now be used in the last 2 minutes as the timing guideline, a change from the last minute of play, which includes the option to advance the ball after a timeout and away from the play foul in the last 2 minutes, result in one free throw by any player in the game and possession. The throw-in from the front court during the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter and last 2 minutes of the overtime period may now be thrown into the backcourt. If a team commits 3 or 4 or fewer team fouls during the first 8 minutes of any regulation period, or 2 or fewer team fouls during the first 3 minutes of any overtime period, the team will be penalized beginning with the second team foul in the last 2 minutes. An instant replay reviews of a 2-point or 3-point shot attempt will be conducted immediately upon a successful basket when the clock stops in the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter or last 2 minutes of any overtime period. Both rule changes were recommended by the WNBA's Competition Committee at its meeting held on December 2nd. Now, Crystal, obviously, again, it's another year of rule changes, but again, nothing too major or serious that is going to be changed, more so just altering the game clock and timeouts a little bit. We kind of saw this a little bit last year in the season. So, Crystal, with your experience again, how does the upcoming two rule changes for next year kind of affect the pace of the game and game flow for next year in your mind? What do you think? And go for it.
I think it's going to make the game faster. These women are great athletes. The game is changing. The game's getting faster. I think it's going to be pretty good. Of course, it's going to be a struggle for a little bit for probably the first couple of months where the players and the coaches and the refs have to get used to the rule change, but I actually think it's going to make the game that more enjoyable.
Crystal, I've kind of noticed that trend a little bit when I've done the women's games at Point Loma Nazarene University down here in San Diego, is it just seems like now the game goes by a bit quicker. I was working a game on Saturday and had to kind of rush off campus to go do a football game, a college football game on Saturday night at about 4:30. My game started at 2 o'clock in Crystal. That game, I believe, got over at about 3 o'clock, maybe even 3:10 in the afternoon. So roughly between an hour, 10 minutes, hour and a half has kind of been the games I've kind of been noticing. And I believe, though, that the format change as a whole has really done this to the game where Crystal now, you see those men's games, and I have to work both the women's games and the men's games, and those men's games, my goodness, they just go like this and like this and like this, and there's really you really can't find a good rhythm with men's college basketballs. They're still in the 220 format. Like I said, though, I believe that they're going to go to 412 in a couple years, I think. But just that the format change for the women has been so beneficial, not just for what we've talked about on the network, Crystal, plenty of times, but also in regards to pace and game flow, in regards to getting people in the gym at a good time and getting them out of the gym at a good time if they're not staying for another game, or if it is just one game, and so on and so forth. I believe that tonight when PLNU played at Cal State San Marcos, that game, I believe, started at roughly 7:30, and I believe it wrapped up at about maybe 9:05. So the pace of the game has really picked up, really done wonders going forward. But again, folks, to reiterate again, the two minor rule changes for the WNBA again for 2016 again is the shot clock. Crystal, we'll start with you now on this one, or we'll just go to you with this one again. Shot clock now resetting to 14 seconds after any offensive rebound or when the offensive team otherwise retains possession following the ball making contact with the rim. Crystal, I believe we've seen this rule in the NBA more so, where you see the shot clock either as a foul and they have to inbound the ball, or the ball getting knocked out of play, or you see something where that team that's attacking the front court keeps possession. The shot clock does go back to 14. So is that a rule change that is probably long overdue for the WNBA in your mind going forward?
Of course, I think so. I mean, I'm glad the WNBA is starting to get out of ancient times when it comes to basketball. I'm glad they're starting to move the game forward and make the game faster, which is something that I think all WNBA fans and players can appreciate. I think since the game is progressing at a fast rate, both on the court and off the court, both with players and the way things are being handled with coaching, I think it's long overdue. I just can't wait to see how it's going to be. Like I said, it's going to be a struggle. People got to get used to it again, kind of like when they implemented I remember they implemented the 3-second rule. You saw a lot of people get that turnover for the first couple of months, and then they slowly started to get used to it. So I think it's going to be, of course, for the first couple of months, things are going to be kind of different. But I think once they get used to it, the game is going to be that much better.
Crystal, I remember when we talked about the rule change or the format change to 4:10. Eric said a big word, and I want to bring it up here, was standardizing the game. Kind of coming, as you said, coming into the modern era of professional basketball. I know that the WNBA for a long time was the similar 220 format, then it went to the 410 system to adapted by FIBA many years ago. But again, though, standardizing the game is what I believe Eric would say if he was here with us tonight, and I believe that I'm just going to carry the load over for him and just say, to kind of see these new rule changes go forward, again, the 14-second shot clock reset, everything else included, long overdue and much needed as well. And, of course, Crystal, the things, though, that I believe, though, that I think, though, in wake of what we saw in 2015 in the playoffs with the controversial ending between the Lynx and Mercury in the playoffs last year, again, is perhaps the new changes to the rules under 2 minutes now. So no longer is it going to be under 1 minute. Now it's a 2-minute warning now, basically, for any fouls that may occur, and, of course, all the possessions going on. Crystal, out of all the rule changes, though, in here, which, again, you have the option now to advance the ball after a timeout. If there's a foul away from the ball in the final 2 minutes, it results in a free throw by any player and possession to that team, and then everything else included. With all those new rule changes, I guess your thoughts now about how the final 2 minutes of each half will be decided now in your mind going forward with the new 2-minute warning and 2-minute rule changes also implemented today by the league.
I mean, I think honestly it's just about time. Now it seems like the men's college game is the one that's getting slowly behind, but it's about time. I mean, there's the quality of the play in the league is so much higher that now they have to push the game and they have to push the pace higher, and I'm glad they're doing it. I mean, like I said, it took a while, but in fairness, the WNBA is still young compared to other leagues that have been around, for years. So, but I'm glad they're finally starting to get up there with their big brothers in the NBA.
Again, folks, to find out more about the rule changes, again, visit WNBA.com. Again, those are the two big rule changes for the 2016 season. Again, in regards to shot clock and offensive possessions for the 2016 season. And by the way, those other rule changes for the final 2 minutes, again, is what else is going on next season. Crystal, looking back over some of the things, again, not much else to get to. Again, very quiet night on the women's basketball home front this evening. Again, it's not a lot, really much to discuss or talk about. Again, we pretty much covered our bases. with the overseas stuff last night, I should say. We'll have more about that coming up later in the week and also into next week as well. But Crystal, I do though now that just kind of this just came back to me again. Seeing again though that we've seen the college women's game again go to the 4-10 system, and I pretty much have been the advocate saying the men's game will be 4-12 in about 1 to 2 years. Crystal, and you just brought up though too about the men's game being behind. When do you think though that perhaps they will standardize the men's basketball game at the college level though 2 to 4 minute to 4 12-minute quarters going forward, perhaps, because we said though, this was really done though to kind of benefit student athletes going forward for the WNBA or overseas though. But will the men's game perhaps jump ship eventually and go to 4-12 sometime soon? What do you think and why?
Well, for one, real quick, I have two WNBA updates that I'll get to later. And for the men's basketball, I think they're going to do it soon. Why not? Men's basketball has always been played at a higher pace anyway. In some regards, a higher pace. But I think they're going to do it soon. I don't think they're going to be stuck in the Stone Age forever. The women's basketball just got 4 quarters, and I've been saying for a long time that men's and women's college basketball should play 4 quarters anyway. I kind of didn't like that half system like that, but I can see them probably, if not next year, in a couple of years down the road, getting the 4-quarter system as well.
Crystal, I think back to October 21st, we had Back to the Future Day here on the program. We had Shorty's sound effects soundtrack in the background going on. But more so, I remember it, though, because I told the story about when I went to my first college game, not UConn, but my first game in the early 2000s at San Diego State, which was a men's game. And I recall, because at the time I was just watching the NBA and some of the W and just seeing, more so the NBA because I saw more of those games and still watched some of the W as well. But just recall those seeing them, like a Lakers Sun game being 4-minute, 12-minute, 12-minute quarters. Then I go to a basketball game at Cox Arena then, now the AOS Arena, but of course, a game at San Diego State, men's game, and the second half ends, and I think it's halftime, but I'm leaving the gym with my mom and dad and a few of my friends that I went with, and I'm like, but they played 2 quarters. Why was the game over? Then they had to explain about the differences, and I think though, that's probably what the men's game does not want to have happen, and especially, if you're going to be watching one game for a while, and then, it's tough to kind of transition from going from one system to another system in a kind of a short span. So, Crystal, you had a couple updates for us. What are they? Go for it. Floor is yours.
Yes, well, the first one, I don't know if anyone heard, Epiphany Prince tore her ACL and will be out. She just had surgery. I don't know how long she'll be out for. I hope she has a quick recovery because injuries are never really the way to go, especially an injury like that. It's pretty devastating. The second one is, I don't know if anyone heard about this. We had another important piece of a WNBA business, a person step down. Evie Goldstein, she was in charge pretty much of the players union. She stepped down today. I'm not sure if anyone knew about that. It's at the same face Callum made. I made the same face earlier when I heard about that. Now, not only do they have to look for a league president, but they have to look for another player union leader. Tamika Catchings is retiring, so maybe that would be a good candidate for it. It just seems like when it rains, it pours with the league, but there is some good news. Mark Tatum has said that the progress of looking for a president is looking very well. He said it's looking good. They have candidates already. They're not saying who the candidates are, but they're saying that they're very high caliber. They have also talked about, a couple of changes that they're possibly going to make. One of them is forming, instead of having, they have 2 conferences, they're going to think about putting divisions in. So they're going to think about putting in 3 divisions. It hasn't taken place yet, but they said that if they voted, it could take place as early as next season. So that would be pretty awesome, a pretty big change. Like we said earlier, the WNBA is trying to move forward. Cal is excited. And they also say that Mark Tatum and Adam Silver are actually really engaged, which is a great thing for people who are worried about in women's basketball land. Everything is good in WNBA land. They're saying everybody is on the same page, everybody's engaged. And, that's pretty much all that I had on that end so far. But the biggest news today probably by far might be Epiphany Prince's injury and Evie Goldstein stepping down.
Now, Crystal, I wanted to throw us out real quick. Now that you got me going like this, like about the divisions, like about time to break away. The only thing though is I work for a similar league of the WNBA, which is the Arena Football League, and they just had three of their teams full because of money problems. And I recall that last year they had 12 teams last summer for their last spring and summer for their season, but they were in a similar boat as the W with 12 teams, and they had 3 to 4 teams roughly in each division. So kind of mapping it out. I mean, if you figure if you do like a Pacific division, it would be L.A., Phoenix, and Seattle in one. Then probably Midwest would be Dallas, San Antonio, and maybe Chicago in one. I mean, if it's going to be divided up amongst divisions by 3 teams, you have to really consider that going forward. I kind of like that. I might actually think about that going forward about what my proposal would be. But you kind of have one division already set up with the West or the Pacific, whatever you want to call it, between the Storm, Sparks, and Mercury as one. Again, because it does have to be pretty much equal amongst 3 teams in each division if you're going to go that format. As well with Epiphany Prince, I did hear about that though, and I will tell you, I mean, playing through injury sometimes is not the wisest thing to do. I've done that a few times, and especially ACL tears are no bueno to play through. And then then Chris, like I said, I mean, when it rains, it pours. I mean, if it's not one person, stepping down from the WNBA, it's something else happening. But though I believe though that with Mark Tatum right now being the interim president, that things will be fine. And as you also mentioned as well with Adam Silver, also giving his full trust in the league, and also with Mark as well. So again, with them being really engaged, again, should really kind of put the fans that were a bit on edge, kind of in a bit more of a relaxed mood going forward. But again, possibly divisions. I really like that idea. I'll take a look at my map and see what we can do going forward. We'll have some fun with some divisions coming up probably in a couple of days on the network. With that though, Crystal, again, not much else to get to as we reported on earlier. We do have one tweet though from Shorty, Crystal, Tanisha, who cannot make the night. She says the league needs divisions, not liking it, not enough teams. But Crystal, here's the funny thing though. The Arena Football League, like I just said, was also 12 teams, and it worked out pretty well. They had 2 conferences with 2 divisions with roughly 3 to 4 teams in each division. So I can really though see it going forward. Now, yes, expansion is also going to have to be on the radar as well with Mark and Adam and the new president going forward. But divisional format, believe it or not, folks, can work in a league like with WNBA and even the Arena Football League, because it worked last year with their 12 teams before 3 of them left, though. But again, Crystal, I believe though that divisional play can work going forward, I think, and also, it's not much of a bigger difference than it would be of having conferences. So obviously, you brought it up, Crystal. So what's your thought about divisional play, perhaps going forward?
I also missed out one update. I'm sorry. I was thinking ahead. They also talked about scheduling changes as well. They're thinking about forming a more balanced schedule, so hopefully that works out. And as far as divisions, I agree with Shorty, and I agree with you as well. I do agree that there needs to be more teams to have the divisions that they want. I like the conferences as it is right now because, it's 12 teams so far right now. So, I mean, maybe if they get more, the conference will work. I'm not quite sure how the conference thing will work out. But it would be a cool idea. It's something new, it's something fresh. They're trying to get more to current basketball, like how the NBA has it. But it'd be interesting to see if it could work out with the teams that they have. But definitely an expansion would have to come about.
Now, Crystal, with expansion, before we kind of move away from this and kind of go off the beaten path tonight, and again, we'll have more about this developing story, folks, over the next couple of days on the network here when we get the rest of the team together here on the network. Crystal, is in your mind, though, how many more teams would the league have to add, though, for a fair divisional shake? I would probably say you'd have to go from 12 to 16 at least, perhaps going forward. You'd have to have a 16 team, maybe even 18 teams in this league, perhaps, to make it really work out well. Now, again, though, as I brought up though earlier, again, the AFL again did have 12 teams like the WNBA, but again, made it work out pretty well. Again, they had 3 teams, again, roughly 3 to 4 based on geographic location put forward. And again, Chris, we kind of got one already set up here with us out here on the West Coast, again, between the Storm, the Sparks, and the Mercury. That could be one division already set forth. But Chris, though, if expansion does go through, how many teams in your mind though would have to be added though to make this a more adequate divisional format if we do in fact go to this sometime soon?
Well, one, Eric wanted to shout out. So, hello, Eric. Whoop, whoop. Glad that you're watching. Oh, I want to also thank Shorty for giving me my logo for my blog that's coming up tomorrow. You guys know more about that. But how many more teams for a division or just in general?
Just for a division in your mind.
Um, I would say 18, so you could split it evenly.
Yeah, fair
Um,
enough. I say 8 as well.
I think 18 would be perfect. 12 is fine. I mean, sometimes I do get tired of seeing the same teams. Like Shorty just said about the schedule, I get tired of seeing LA and Seattle go at it for the past 3 to 4 years on season openers. So I think 18 would be awesome. Um, I think, I mean, I have some ideas of where I think there would be some great places to put teams, but then again, I don't work in that department. WNBA, if you need somebody, I'm here. I accept checks, pennies, quarters. I accept any kind of currency. It all spins the same once you put it in the bank.
Does that include foreign currency too?
Oh no, it's got to be American for right now. But yes, I think I have a couple ideas of where some teams would probably fit, but I think 18 would be perfect. You could split it evenly. You don't have to worry about oh, I'm gonna put this team here, put this team there. But that would be awesome to see more teams. It's long overdue for an expansion.
And now my mind is just spinning, folks. I mean, when I wasn't playing sports or doing the network when I was younger, I would actually announce fictional leagues that I was playing in with the San Diego team against other teams. I had many phony leagues I put together, but relatively though played it the same way. And I would get ideas about team names and locations. So now it's kind of like here we go again. The gears are grinding, folks, going forward. Chris, we did have one tweet though about your first update about Epiphany Prince from Philly Kid from @Rambots. 68, they said, how much do you think the Liberty are affected by Prince's injury next season? KT, react to me. What do you think?
Oh, I think they're going to be affected. Especially, I think they said she tore her ACL in two different places or something like that. I got to go back and read it. But I think they're going to be affected. I mean, Epiphany Prince is that's pretty much that was one of their main players. Hopefully she recovers quickly. I mean, I think at this point because it's so late, she might miss the whole season. And if she's lucky, she won't. But I think New York is going to have a little bit of a problem. But I mean, they're so powerful back there. Their benches. I mean, we saw what their bench did in the playoffs. So I think they have a chance, but it's going to hurt them. It's going to hurt big time.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you lose a player of the caliber of Epiphany Prince going forward, that is going to be something that, my goodness, that's going to be something to kind of keep your on going forward as well. And as Chris Rob again, Shorty did tweet though, switch up the schedule so LA can stop playing Seattle every freaking season opener. So yeah, we definitely need to do that as well, perhaps going forward. Now, Crystal, again, we're going to go off beat here eventually, sometime soon before we do get off the air tonight. Again, you're up though about possibly a alter in the schedule now. Again, as we know, it's 34 games. Again, more games with your conference, more so than the non-conference opponents. So, Crystal, in your mind, how would the new schedule, perhaps in your mind, again, what you've probably seen, how would that new format for the schedule work if we do in fact go to divisional play, perhaps?
Um, I, Divisional play, I think it will make it. I mean, there's already great competition as it is now, but I think it will make it more competitive as far as not only are you competing against somebody in your conference, but now you have to worry about your whole division. Whereas before, you just have to worry about, say for instance, LA's not. Whoops, my bad, guys. LA's not. LA's not worried about what New York does because they're not in the division. But if you do have divisions, not saying New York's going to be in that division, but just an example, if you do have divisions, now they have to worry about what this team is doing and what that team is doing, and it makes the competition that's much harder because not only are you trying to compete for your spot, but you're trying to make sure they don't take your spot, and it's not going to be easy.
Now, Chris, we know that with the NBA that they altered their playoff format or standings for this year. Again, divisional winners are no longer guaranteed a spot in the postseason based on if they win the division or not, because now it's open to anyone in the entire rest of the conference. So perhaps with that system as well, perhaps go down to the WNBA as well if they do in fact go to divisional format. Yes and no, and why?
It kind of cut off at the end. Can you please repeat? I'm sorry.
Just wanted to bring up, with the NBA again, they switched up the format again. Divisional winners no longer guaranteed a playoff berth. It's now kind of a wide open conference for the playoff standings and seeding. So, do you perhaps think that if in fact the W does go to a divisional format, would division winners not be guaranteed a spot in the postseason? Kind of the NBA in your mind going forward? Yes and no, or why?
I would kind of like that actually because, like I said, it makes the competition better. That means we won't see the same Minnesotas, and yes, I'm throwing a little bit of shade at Minnesota because I'm tired of seeing them. But you won't see the same Minnesotas and the same teams like that. It's going to be harder. It's not going to be easy. And like I said, if it brings more competition, I'm in for it. I'm all for it.
Yeah, like I said, folks, the mind is just going a million miles an hour to kind of get through the show here. We got 5 more minutes left, so I can kind of sit down and map out what I believe division should be. And hey, we'll be sure to get everyone's take though when we come back here on Friday night back here on WNBA 365. Crystal, going off the beat now, real quick for the final few minutes here again. Blog stories coming, folks. First from Crystal, then eventually when I get a chance to finish mine, you'll be reading mine. But again, Crystal, again, you brought yours up again really brief last night, but yours is done. It'll be sent out about roughly 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. Again, but what can people, though, that want to read your story again, what can they find in your upcoming story? A little sneak peek for the folks out there. What is it and what?
They can find. I mean, honestly, it's pretty much just. I think they can find how, and it's sad to say how they can find out how some women and young girls involved in women's basketball or girls basketball don't watch the women's game at all. I briefly talked about a story about y'all, and everybody, like I said, everybody knows I like Don Staley. I briefly talked about a story about a player on my team who had no idea who Don Staley was, and it kind of threw me off a little bit because I'm like, you don't know who Don Staley is? That's a legend, So it's kind of pretty much, the shock that I went through when I found out that people don't watch, especially women and young girls don't watch women's basketball that much like they should.
Yeah, Crystal, and any time I get a chance to talk to my friends at PONU playing the women's team, and they've kind of asked me though as to why I'm always smiling and whenever I'm there, and I always give them hugs and stuff when I see them. I said, it's a sport other than baseball that I've loved, watching and covering, and I've told them that a lot of times, and even today before they had their games, one of my friends has said, "You are seriously the best going forward." But that's what it is. It's something called for the love of the game, and and obviously, I get ridiculed every now and then for watching the game by people that aren't fans of the WNBA, and I've been ridiculed on here plenty of times in the early going. But hey, it's for the love of the game. I've been doing this for 12 years, so don't think it's just some guy that started following the league 1 year and then all of a sudden becomes obsessed with one player on the LA Sparks that doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. I mean, I've done this for 12 years going forward, so. That's, Chris, that's what it is. It's for the love of the game. I mean, you played your sport for the love of the game. I played my sport for the love of the game, and I'm here doing as well for the love of the game as well going forward. Chris, we had one tweet, though, from Philly Kid 215 again, from @Rambot68. They tweeted, "I think the WNBA needs to change the playoff bracket system. Don't like it's fair." They say, I don't think it's fair that if you lose one game, you're facing elimination. So I think we had kind of talked about that again about the best 2 out of 3 going forward. I believe, though, that I had talked about this with Pat Friday after the debacle in Phoenix in the playoffs, Crystal. Would you like to see the WNBA go to 4-7 for all playoff series or 3 out of 5? What do you think and why?
4-7. I mean, need to make it old school, especially as we watch. Everybody, I'm pretty sure, watched that Indiana Minnesota series. I mean, that series alone makes you wish you would have saw more basketball. I know I did. I was like, man, why can't there be a couple more games? But I think they need to. I think like I said, if anything that makes the competition better, I'm all for it, and I think that would definitely make the competition higher.
Yeah, no, totally agree 100%. And again, folks, Crystal's big news again, Epiphany Prince again, surgery today on the ACL. And also reported today again, another WNBA employee stepping down. But also, folks, possible WNBA divisional play coming to your city in 2016, perhaps, that is being in the woodworks right now by the WNBA. Front office and everyone else included, and also perhaps also a schedule adjustment as well for 2016. We'll have more about this, folks, on Friday night because I do have to work a soccer game tomorrow night, so again, we'll be back here on Friday, and hopefully we'll have the entire team back, or at least some of them will be back on Friday night. With that, folks, we are running out of time of the night. We'll see you folks back here on Friday for Crystal Thomas up in Los Angeles. Cal McClurgan and San Diego signing off, saying have a safe night, drive home safely. Thanks for stopping by and joining us, and good night. This has been the WNBA 365 Network. We are the WNBA and covering the WNBA and the rest of the women's basketball universe. See you folks back here on Friday. Good night. Bye-bye.